So for me, that's cost, market insight, and consumer experience. So these are 3 points that banks and other fintechs often make the process more efficient and really impersonal for someone doing their banking.
I'm Bryce Gracie, host of the EZee E-Commerce podcast, and this podcast is dedicated to boosting your trajectory towards international success through connecting you with e-commerce and Amazon experts, all with something different to offer.
Today we spoke with Emily from OFX about using global trade accounts for your foreign currency needs, using forward contracts to mitigate risk of foreign currency fluctuations, as well as the benefits of using a fintech provider for your global expansion. But of course, I'm not going to share with you all the secrets now. You have to listen a little bit more for all the insights. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the EZee E-Commerce podcast. Today's episode is an important one. If you are selling across borders, you need to have a solution ready to receive payments and convert to your local currency. It's really that simple. To talk to this point, we have brought in a specialist from the fintech payments world, working currently as a partnerships manager at OFX and a partner to ZEE at that. Welcome to the podcast, Emily. How are things going in Fort Lauderdale?
Hi, Bryce. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so thrilled to be here. Coming to you from sunny Fort Lauderdale. So life is good, and I'm just so grateful to be here with you today.
Brilliant. No, we're super happy to be here. I think we've spoken so much at a couple of events. It's actually quite nice to get you speaking to our audience now. But as we always start on this podcast, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and about OFX, what you guys do, what you're currently doing, and yeah, we can go from there.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Emily. I'm an Alliance Partnerships Manager at OFX. To go backwards a bit, I'm a graduate of St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia before my life brought me down here to Florida. My career has a heavy added marketing background. I originally started working for an advertising agency. I found my passion is to be really as client-facing as possible, so partnership sales just really fit well for me. I found the world of e-commerce and then specifically fintech for e-commerce, and that brought me to my role today with OFX. To speak more on who OFX is, we are a publicly traded fintech company founded over 20 years ago in Australia. Since then, we have grown to 8 offices globally. And our mission overall is just making cross-border payments more safe, efficient, and affordable for corporations or consumers. There's a number of different verticals that this can apply to, namely, of course, e-commerce. And it's really our mission to just make these traditional banking tools a little more efficient, more affordable for people, and also give them the tools to optimize their business as well as expand globally.
Brilliant, brilliant. So if we go back a little bit, how did you find the move from advertising to financial technology? How was that jump?
Yeah, so to be forthright, I don't have a heavy finance background, so this isn't something I thought I'd really roll into, but I think that's kind of the beauty of all of this. I think when you think of fintech or you think of these international payments, it seems like it's really cumbersome sort of topic that you need all this sort of financial advising and background on, and to really understand it and be able to optimize your own financial plan and growth, it really isn't that cumbersome or intimidating at all. So yeah, my background is ad and marketing. I worked across several verticals, and within the ad agency, I had gotten into the whole realm of e-commerce and building those brands, which then I hopped to an e-commerce firm to do partnership sales and marketing for them. And through walking the floor of conferences, I found OFX, and I really believe in the product. It's great to know every day that the company that I'm behind and the product that I'm selling is a tremendous added value and is truly helping people's lives as well as their businesses.
Okay, brilliant. So As a layman, I guess myself, I mean, I have a bit of a finance background, but when it comes to fintech providers,
you totally do. You totally do.
but when it comes to like fintech providers, I feel like I'm in the dark. So if I'm an e-commerce seller, why would I choose fintech wallet or payment provider or payment processor such as OFX as my provider over, and this may be a very silly question, over like a local bank account in that country? I know you guys work together in like I know local banks work with OFX, but what is the difference?
Absolutely. So at OFX, we're not a bank, but we work with banks, and specifically we work with tier one banks. Which does make a big difference. For those who are not familiar, there's a lot of fintechs work with neobanks, and those banks are completely online. It's a like whole new world of digital banking without that brick and mortar establishment. But then the problem is the lacking of FDIC insurance and sometimes proper licensing. So with us partnering with tier one banks, we're able to provide the stability and the reliability of bank accounts from Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, etc. But then having our own touch to it, having to not have to work with those banks yourself, we're able to, with the relationships that we've built with them, do things a little bit better and make it a little more efficient for you and a little more friendly also. So for me, there's three main points that really stand out to why you would choose a fintech and why you would choose OFX to be your fintech. So for me, that's cost, market insight, and consumer experience. So these are 3 points that banks and other fintechs often make the process more efficient and really impersonal for someone doing their banking. So at OFX, we believe it shouldn't cost you the world to send funds anywhere around the world. We want to make making or receiving payments just more efficient and also not have to cost you a heavy penny every time you want to make a transfer. So cost-wise, banks charge anywhere from 3 to even, and I was floored by this, 7% on transfers, which especially for companies, when they're talking several figure digits, it's a huge number add to the transfer they're just trying to make, as well as transfer fees and volume limits. For online sellers, an example for Amazon, when they're trying to repatriate their funds, Amazon is charging them just less than 2% just to bring their revenue back home. And it's done on Amazon's pay cycle. So with OFX, you would be charged exponentially less to either make these transfers or for an Amazon seller just to bring your revenue back home. And you would also have more control over your funds as well. So you could choose when it's being transferred, which marketplace you're repatriating it back and forth to on your own terms. As far as market insight, it's hard. And sometimes I think a lot of people don't trust the advice that they get from traditional banks because they think they just want to get more money from them, or they're just not, I think there's a lot of worry about that. And then other fintechs, they're really just there for the transfer. For us, we want to be there not just to aid in the money transfer, but also to aid in your own growth plan. So we have financial advisors, our dealers that are making these transfers have been in the industry for decades. And onboarding with OFX, you have those tools at your fingertips to have these conversations with our dealers and talk to them about financial hedging strategies. What are forwards? How can I be mitigating market volatility? All these things that you may not have had access to before or don't really have a background on. You now have a family that wants to take you in and have these conversations with you. And then lastly, to touch on consumer experience, I think a lot of issues people have with banking are the hours, the hold times when they're trying to call in if they can't go to a physical bank, or just being stuck talking to a bot. Something that we are really passionate about at OFX is making fintech more human. So, and this we will swear to you by, you can speak to an OFX expert 24/7. And having 8 offices globally allows for that time availability, because anytime someone calls in, they'll be pinged to someone at one of the offices that fits those hours. And additionally, coming in through the ZEE partnership, you get a dedicated account manager, which will be me. So there's that even more personal touch, because at the end of the day, it's your money. It matters to you, which means it matters to us. So you will always have that personal touch when it comes to fintech.
Okay, so it's basically got the advantages of having that rigidity of a local bank, but not having to deal with the paperwork, the bureaucracy, the app crashes, the fixed and rigid pricing structures that come with local banks. I mean, having worked for a bank for myself, I know some of the hassles that customers deal with. But I guess also, I mean, I'm in South Africa. We have the South African rand, which is extremely volatile when compared to the dollar, the euro, the pound. So I guess locking in that rate, however long into the future, with that forward contract is so good from a risk mitigation perspective, in terms of having that fixed rate now and receiving it at a later stage where it may have spiked and you will be getting a lower rate on that FX transfer in any case.
Absolutely. That's something that we really put forward, that really differentiates us from a lot of traditional banks and other fintechs, being able to offer those forward contracts. And you can sign them for up to 12 months, just kind of depending on your plan, what's best for you. But as you mentioned, there's been a lot of news going around currencies between the parity of the USD to the euro, the parity of the Australian dollar to New Zealand dollar. You mentioned your local currency. So a lot of people would say it almost matters more than ever to really be paying attention to the markets and be able to mitigate market volatility, and then even almost leverage the way that the markets are moving to your advantage.
Mm-hmm. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I don't think it's something commonly thought of with e-commerce sellers today. But I think it definitely should be thought of more often, especially if they're wanting to take their future growth plans seriously. But if we're talking on that currency risk and the volatility that comes with FX in general, in comparing two currencies that operating differently, how would you recommend a seller would manage that currency risk? Would it be through forward contracts?
So I feel forward contracts are definitely one of the strongest solutions that we have, really to more so mitigate that risk and give that consistency and stability, especially for companies that have these consistent payments like payroll. That's something that you're going to want to keep really stable and well communicated over time with your team. But an additional solution that we have as well are our global currency accounts. And those allow online sellers to have a local bank account in markets that may not actually be their local market. So I'm in the US. So say I'm selling for Amazon UK. I can, through OFX, have a GCA opened in pound. So it allows me to send and receive funds like a local. So that's another way to kind of mitigate some of the cross-border, cross-currency risk, is that I will actually be functioning as though I'm in the UK with my own local account. So this is another way of having better control over your funds and being able to really feel like a local in the market that you are selling in. Okay.
And with that local bank account, correct me if I'm wrong, but you might be able to also receive, going into the UK, you'll have a lot of VAT, payments, VAT liabilities. Sorry, I couldn't find my words there. Liabilities and also VAT refunds that would be able to be paid into that local bank account.
Exactly.
I know we've been getting a lot of questions about that, so I'm certainly glad that OFX is in a position to assist sellers in that regard.
Yes, and our GCAs are one of our solutions that we are expanding at a much faster rate than really ever before. I've been with OFX for almost a year now, which is like kind of crazy, coming up on my anniversary. And within the year I'm here, we have grown from 7 to 9 currencies that we offer our currency accounts in. So our latest one that we've just added to our dashboard would be the Polish PLN. So we have 9 currencies now, and ever expanding. So we'll definitely be updating as more come on our dashboard. But from the USD, the CAD, the Euro, the Pound, the Hong Kong Dollar, the Japanese Yen, and other really popular currencies that Amazon sellers are going to be in those markets using, we can provide them these local bank accounts all through the single dashboard of OFX.
Sure, fantastic. So, if we still talk about the wallet situation, how quickly would I get paid in my local currency when I'm using OFX?
So traditionally, so it depends on the currency. Just some currencies are more high risk than others. And that's something that as you're onboarding, we're going to ask you just for consumer behavior, what currencies will you be moving between? And we can have that discussion for expectations. But typically, transfers are made within 24 hours. The longest might be 48 hours, but most are going to be within that 1 to 2 day mark, unless it's more high risk currency, which again you will already have your dealer team will have discussed with you. But yeah, usually 1 day, max 2 days.
And that is actually shorter than some of the local banks in South Africa. If they're different banks, if you're paying through one bank to another bank, it actually sometimes takes a little bit longer than that. So for an international transfer, getting paid in your local currency, that's tremendously fast. Do you know how long, just out of curiosity, people were waiting to get paid in their local currency before a fintech solution had been established?
As far as it definitely depends on what bank you're going through or what payment portals you're going through. But I know for most banks, it's traditionally a couple business days, and then when we're talking sometimes consumer over corporate, that could even then extend further. For Amazon, their pay cycles are every 2 weeks. So you definitely see across from marketplaces to traditional banking, that timeline is definitely longer, and we wanted to make that more efficient for our users, because whether it's your revenue from a store or whether you're looking to purchase real estate internationally, you're going to want to make that buy as quick as you can, or get that money home as quick as you can, and we want to aid in that.
Brilliant. So this payments world, from my understanding, and I'm obviously not as deep as you are, but it is like an ever-changing kind of industry. There are always new perks, new solutions, new advancements. But what are the most recent ones? What are the ones that, as an e-commerce seller listening to this podcast, I have to know about right now?
Absolutely. So we're always working on expanding our currencies and going back to those global currency accounts, the currencies that we offer for those as well. So right now we offer over 50 currencies that you can make either one-way or two-way transfers in, which encompasses like well over 150 countries within those currencies. And for our global currency accounts, our latest ones will be the Japanese yen and the Polish PLN. And we are always working on more. So those are definitely key points for online sellers to look at when they're looking for fintechs. What markets are they currently in? What markets are they looking to expand in? Do they have suppliers in? Do they have virtual assistants in? And can their fintech support those currencies, or even open them up local accounts in those currencies?
Okay, and that's actually was going to go on to my next topic, which would be what should sellers look for when dealing with an overseas payments provider? So I'm assuming that would be scale, what areas they offer, what currencies they offer, what are their rates? Do you want to maybe expand a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. That was a very smooth transition that we just organically had there. So yeah, there's a couple points that anyone, but specifically online sellers, should look for when doing their research on what fintech they want to trust. So first, of course, it's going to be cost. You want to make sure that you're getting the most competitive FX rate that you can. But then on top of that, you want to make sure that there's full transparency. And that might be tough because I'm sure most companies aren't going to tell you, and by the way, we're going to change this anytime. But try to do your best at learning, I guess, the credibility, or kind of, talk around with people in here if they've experienced full transparency, because a lot of people that I've had on board with me at OFX have left other, of our competitors, which are great, but they've experienced that when they first were onboarded, they were given this really competitive, great rate. And over time, that rate changed without them knowing. So it's definitely important to know you're not only getting quoted a great margin today, but that's going to stay. There's no sneakiness, here. Exactly. So next, you want to know where, if you're going to have a global currency account, where is that being opened? So as we spoke about with us, it's going to be with a tier 1 bank, Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, any of these brick and mortar establishments that have traditional bank licensing, heavy compliance, so that you really have that more trust and assurance versus a neobank. You're going to want to learn about the compliance process. So this part, for someone who isn't as familiar, it's going to sound really scary, but pretty much if you just ask, what is their compliance process, what does it entail, it's going to give you an idea of, is it going to be a little more work on the forefront or every time you want to make a transfer. So at OFX, we are more compliance heavy at the start. Being an Australian-based company, it's really important that we are more conservative with our business and that we do things right from the get. We really get to know our consumer. So our process is going to be a little heavier on the front end to know where your funds coming from, what are they being used for, what currencies are you going to need to really set up your dashboard as thoroughly as possible, so that then when you go to make transfers, they're forward, it's smooth sailing. It's not so you just sign up, but then every time you need to make a transfer, it's all this paperwork and all this cumbersome work to come with it. And then lastly, I would say to look at how easily that those fintech solutions can be applied to your business. So with OFX, it's going to be a single, easy-to-use dashboard. So when you log in, you'll see all of your GCAs will be on just one dashboard. So you won't have to really go through any other portals. So it's going to be very simple and easy to use, especially for someone that, a lot of times all these banking apps try to make it really confusing. We try to make it as simple as possible. Within those dashboards, something that I actually learned just by speaking to online sellers, other fintech companies, so say you open a GCA in pound, it's just going to tell you your revenue for that currency, but it's not going to break it down. You might have a white label vitamin store, you might have a sportswear store. So with us, you're able to actually break down each of the stores that are funneling into that GCA. So not just what your revenue was in the pound this month, but you'll know what it was coming from each specific source. So it's really that more organized breakdown that we're able to offer our online sellers. And then lastly, both parties don't need an OFX account to receive or send funds. Of course, we would love for everyone to open up an OFX account, but it does save you that step. So if you're paying out a supplier or if you're paying virtual assistants, you don't need to ask them to create an OFX account to send them money through your dashboard. So it's just that ease of applying our solutions to your business that is definitely an added value, and I would ask anyone doing their research to look for.
Brilliant. Okay, so I feel like that was a lot of important information, and I mean, I think you should probably write a white paper on that or something. But if I'm listening to this, and I mean, I'm obviously making notes because it's very important to kind of recollect that. But if I want to get in touch with you after this, where can I find you online?
Absolutely. So you can find OFX or even my own profile on LinkedIn. I'm always active on there. You can look us up at OFX.com. Or what I really would prefer is for people to just come to me directly. So you can either find me on LinkedIn or reach out to me by email. Being partners with ZEE, it's really important that we know how well you treat your community and your clients, and we want to make sure that we're giving that back, and we're treating those that you're putting your love and labor into growing their business. We want to make sure that we're matching that. So I would happily welcome anyone to just reach out to me directly, either by email or my LinkedIn. But you are free to also find OFX on LinkedIn or our website as well.
Fantastic. Well, Emily, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I know this has been a couple of months in the works, but I think the knowledge that you bring, I know that you are very active at your events, and everyone seems to know who Emily is. And I guess that also just shows the brand of OFX and yourself. And I think just generally this partnership works so fluidly, because when you're expanding into other countries, you need to have some form of FX solution in place. And sometimes, especially with an e-commerce seller, it is you want to be with the times in terms of technology, in terms of ease of use, and as well as in terms of cost. So I guess using a fintech provider is kind of silly not to in this instance. But thank you again for joining us and giving us some of your time. Look forward to hopefully having you again on in the future for OFX and ZEE Part 2. Appreciate it. And for everyone else, have a chat with Emily on LinkedIn. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bryce. I'm so excited to finally be, really in front of your community. The solutions and work that you all have for our e-commerce community is so extensive and incredible, and I'm just grateful that OFX gets to be a part of that added value and that growth journey for your online sellers.
Thanks for watching the EZee E-Commerce podcast. Click here for more episodes and follow us on our socials link below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe.